Today, we become legends.
Stance switches in Smite are permanently skating on thin ice due to their core design. This video will explore this very unique take on MOBA characters that I personally love using, but have a myriad of design and balance issues. A stance switcher is a character design that forgoes some other aspect of a traditional kit, usually the ultimate, in order to gain 2 or more stances that have their own ability bar. Every class in Smite except Assassins has at least one stance switcher, with some having 2 or even 3 within the class. But rather than divide them by class, I'm instead going to group them based on their stance change mechanism, or SCM, since I'll be using that term a lot in this video. Our first group are the ultimate SCMs, the group that consists of Hel, Ula, Artio, and Merlin. They all use their ultimate as their stance change mechanism. So discounting Cthulhu and Fafnir from this for a later group, don't worry, I didn't forget about them, we're left with Hel, Ula, Artio, and Merlin in the ultimate stance change mechanism group. These gods let go of their most powerful ability to gain 3 basic abilities in return. As will be a theme with stance dancers, this group has major balance issues. However, this isn't even the most unbalanced group. Having access to 6 basic abilities isn't just 2 times as powerful as having 3, it's more than that. Of course you do double damage, double CC time, all that stuff, but it also means you nearly always have an ability up at all times, since you have 6 and they're all basic abilities with fairly low manageable cooldowns. Granted, these basic abilities are weaker than your typical god's basic abilities because you have 6 of them, but while you don't have to be scared of an Ula hitting level 5 and ulting you, you have to be scared at all times of getting blindsided by an axe and dying for it. The axe guarantees much more damage than most Hunter ultimates on the follow-up, and it's why Ula still works even without an ultimate. Ula is unique even among stance switchers for that reason. Hel, Artio, and Merlin play more by standard stance switcher rules. They more play the long fight typically, with less burst damage than other classes, except Merlin, kinda, but more sustainability and DPS since they have constant abilities to pump out. If a Merlin drops his entire fire stance kit, he can just stand swap and do it again from Arcane or Frost. Whereas a standard god, once they dump their kit, they're done, aside from their ultimate of course, so that's all you have to worry about. Which is why I would argue this group is one of the more balanced ones among stance switchers. Don't get me wrong, they're not balanced. This video is literally about the fact that they're not very balanceable, but trust me, the next groups are even harder to balance. So group 2 are the basic ability SCMs, gods that forgo a basic ability in order to stance change. Though really it's forgoing 2 abilities since it counts in each stance. Currently, there are only 2 basic SCMs in the game, Tia and Tiamat, an OG and a newcomer. They also both use S3 as the stance change mechanism. This group is arguably the most balanceable since they only get 5 abilities instead of 6 like earlier, but one of those is an ultimate, so you have that traditional Smite design to work off of. Tiamat has been a little rough around the edges, but generally has been pretty fair, and Tia, while annoying, is usually pretty balanced. The thing with Tia though is that he sometimes just absolutely blows out the meta, like with Speed Tia we saw a while back. By far the most balanced group of stance switchers are the limited time SCMs. Contained in this group are Cthulhu, Fafnir, and Cucullin. The reason for their balance is probably obvious. They can't just stance switch whenever they want to, it's limited time. Controlled by either a long cooldown in the case of Cthulhu and Fafnir on their ultimates, or building a meter of some kind like Cucullin's rage meter. He builds rage from hitting and taking hits, then at 85 rage he transforms for 20 seconds, getting a new ability bar. Now there's absolutely an argument for these not even being stance switchers, and I respect that point of view. Personally, I don't class these as true stance switchers. They just have an ultimate or passive that gives them a temporary set of powerful abilities. In my opinion, that's a different mechanic entirely. But I wanted to mention them just so you know I haven't forgotten them, and in the case the general audience thinks differently to me on this. But moving on to the final group of stance dancers, and that's the passive SCMs. This group has only 2 members, or 1 depending on how you look at it I guess, Cucullin and King Arthur. I couldn't decide with Kuchu since both passive SCMs and limited time SCMs apply to him in different ways. This group is definitely the most unique and in my opinion the most fun way to do a stance switcher, but it comes with massive risk as we all know how King Arthur got an item reworked on his own and dominated solo for literally 2 years. I know he's a lot more fair now, but it took a hell of a lot to get him there from release. Even as an Arthur main, I'm willing to admit that. Cucullin has had a better tenure in Smite, but it's still not sunshine and roses. In a way, he's like Arthur light, in that he was more balanced in general, but followed a similar trajectory to Arthur in terms of nerfs. But to a lesser extent, of course. Stance switchers that use their passive have access to 8 entire abilities, including 2 ultimates, hence the general imbalance and risk. This is perhaps why we've only ever seen 2 of these. Passive SCMs, of course, don't just press their stance switch. Cucullin uses his rage mechanic to gain rage and transform for a limited time, as we discussed before, while Arthur simply stance swaps on each ability cast automatically, going from blue to orange and back. It's hard to pick a most balanced stance switcher because they're basically all unbalanced somehow, that's the point of the video, but if I had to choose, Arthur is it. So to address the video title, stance switches skate on such thin ice because they break a fundamental mechanic of the game. 3 basic abilities, 1 ultimate. You can play around almost any god in the game if you know their ult is down, since ultimates are designed to be almost half the kit of the god. When you take that away and instead give someone double normal abilities, it becomes extremely hard, near impossible for the average player to track 6 or 8 cooldowns effectively, especially when considering CDR and ability rank ups. Anyone can go, oh, that guy's ult's down and mine is up, should be a good fight for me, but it's a lot harder to go, oh, that Arthur just used his 1A and his 3B, they're on cooldown, but he still has his 2A, 3A, 1B, 2B, and potentially one of 2 different ultimates that require different counterplay for each one. It's just a bit of a mess. Now, by the off chance that any designers at Hi-Rez are watching, I'm not asking you to stop making stance switches, that's not my point. My point is to think carefully about them and be more cautious launching them than standard 4 ability gods. Stance stances make up my favourite warrior, favourite god of all time actually, in Arthur, my favourite hunter in Ula, as well as some others I play quite a bit like Cuchulainn, Merlin and Tyr. I love these designs, keep them coming, but just be careful when you do.